So, all the stuff we spoke about a few weeks ago when we discussed the NHL's Draft Lottery proposed changes that the league was reviewing, it's all come to fruition here, and it's confirmed over by some of the insiders. It happened yesterday, and I just wanted to get some thoughts over here. So, the NHL Draft Lottery, right? Every team's biggest love-hate relationship heading into the offseason. Yesterday, it was Pierre LeBrun who broke the news on Twitter, talking about how the NHL's proposed draft lottery changes have received approval from the formal Board of Governors after the voting. It is a done deal, and he had himself a little chart over here talking about what exactly it is that got approved. So, if you need a little bit of a refresher, because we did speak about this a few weeks ago, it was a while ago for sure, here are the new rules. Firstly, there will only be 2 draft lotteries instead of 3. So, there will be a lottery done for first overall, and there will be a lottery done for second overall. Previously, there was a lottery done for 3 picks, 1, 2, and 3. Meaning that if you were last in the league, like Detroit was last year, and you didn't win any of the lotteries, like Detroit did last year, you would have dropped from first to second to third all the way to fourth, because the 1, 2, and 3 spot would have been taken by other teams that did win those lotteries. We're changing it. There's only going to be 2. Therefore, the last place team in the league can only drop 2 spots and cannot draft any lower than third overall. The maximum move-up for the draft lottery winner will be limited to 10 spots, so only 11 teams can win the draft lottery and draft first overall instead of the 16 teams that we had been seeing previously. That will start in 2022, so this year, 2021, will still see the 16-team list of potential draft lottery winners, which is going to be kind of crazy, but you know what? It is what it is. Next year, it's going to change. This makes it so that teams that just barely missed the playoffs were eliminated on the last day of the season because one of the other teams went out and won a game in regulation or something. If you barely miss out on the playoffs and you're out of what is the bottom 11 in the league, sorry bud, you're not included in the draft lottery, you can't win. That makes it so that we don't have these teams that are just really, really good, adding some really good players, like, for example, Philadelphia in 2017. That one still haunts my dreams. They were one of the best teams in the draft lottery. There were only 2 teams, the Islanders and the Lightning, that were better than them, and they won second overall to draft Nolan Patrick. The last rule over here, we have ourselves from Pierre LeBrun: no team can win the draft lottery more than twice in a 5-year period, and that constitutes moving up. That was a highlight that we talked about in the previous video, that they're not saying if you're last and you win the draft lottery, that's seen the same way as a team that is not last winning the draft lottery, because the teams that are not last, if they win, they're moving up to first overall. If you're rightfully last in the league and you win first overall, that's not considered moving up. So in our previous video, we highlighted that very distinct change, that if your team is just last every single year over and over and over again, and you get the first overall pick twice, it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to get it a third time if you are genuinely that bad. If, however, you're like New Jersey, and New Jersey wins the draft lottery in 2017, guess what? They're not last, they're 5th last. And then you have 2019. New Jersey wins the draft lottery again, they're 3rd last this time, so they jump up. Next time, New Jersey wouldn't be allowed, but I don't know if this is another detail that has been confirmed, but we did speak about it in the previous video as well, that the previous NHL draft results might not actually count towards this rule, where you're not allowed to win X amount of times in a certain period. They might be starting off with a clean slate come 2022 when this rule gets implemented, but who knows? We'll get there when we get there. It's a year away. It's not too long. But I just wanted to get my overall thoughts towards these changes, because immediately, the first 2 things that I'm thinking about are my fellow Detroit Red Wings fans who have been so passionate in talking about prospects and the draft lottery. Because your team last year was last by a long shot, everybody last year was super stoked to see what would happen with the draft lottery. Would it be Alexis Lafreniere, Byfield, Stützle, Raymond, Rossi, Drysdale? Who would the Red Wings take, and where would they draft? A lot of people are going to say, okay, right away, the Red Wings got screwed over here. The fact that this first rule that Pierre LeBrun is talking about, how you're only going to have 2 lotteries instead of 3, is implemented in 2021. The year after Detroit is so bad, they're last by a long shot and they drop from 1st to 4th. They got screwed here because the change happened immediately after. Well, I kind of want to hold your horses a little bit over there, because if you take a look at the NHL standings, let's go over to the overall list for every team in every division. The Detroit Red Wings are still bad. I mean, they're third last this year. That's a lot better than being last year. So they're still going to get a good pick at the very least. And even though I do understand that, oh, if the Red Wings just had this rule happen to the league a year earlier, they could have gotten Tim Stützle. No disrespect to Raymond, but Stützle's out there. They could have had that Seider-Stützle connection, you know? Get the two Adler-Mannheim guys back together. And while I can agree that that would have been really cool, I think if you chose to implement this rule this year, the damage is not as severe as if you would have implemented it, let's say, from 2022 to 2023 or 2023 to 2024. Because for this year, when this rule is going to start taking place, honestly, the draft is so spread out at the top that the difference between a Stützle and a Raymond, or a Byfield and a Rossi, or a Lafreniere and a Drysdale in last year's top 10 compared to this year's top 10, it's a lot different. Like, it's really not there. The gap between Power, Clark, Hughes, Beniers, Johnson, it's so small, and so many people have so many different opinions based off of who you ask. So, I think, personally, if there was a year to go ahead and implement this change to affect the least amount of teams negatively, it would have been this year, because the draft lottery, whether you're first, second, third, fourth, or fifth, you could get equal value because a lot of these players are either A, under-scouted because their leagues haven't been playing, or B, just super close in general because the 2021 draft out of all the drafts is not one with some top-tier, up-and-away, best-in-the-class kind of players aside from that big group of like 10 guys at the top. It's not like you're getting 10 Quinton Byfields here. You're getting like Alex Holtz, Sanderson-level players from 1 to 10 in this year's draft. Because it's a weaker draft, it says to me that it's not really so much screwing over the Red Wings like a lot of people are thinking it would. It all just comes down to unfortunate timing, and I would rather have this change take place now than next year, for example, when you have Wright, Savoy, and Lambert at the top of the draft, who are absolutely crazy, game-changing franchise-caliber players. It would be even worse if you had this change in 2023, where you had Bedard and Mishkov and all these other great players. Because the implication of that change could be so astronomically huge when you're dealing with the difference between Matvei Mishkov and whoever goes 5th overall in 2023. It's different this year because this year all the players are kind of in the same category. Which also brings a different discussion. Are the Ottawa Senators just super lucky here because they're in a spot where they had themselves a draft lottery win at 3rd overall, the last 3rd overall lottery that we're going to see under the draft lottery system we've had, and they did it with a pick that wasn't even theirs. It was the San Jose pick that was acquired in the Erik Karlsson trade that was bumped up to 3rd overall. Yeah, heck yeah. The Ottawa Senators were really lucky to have everything fall into place the way that it did. Also, the Rangers are pretty lucky as well. The fact that last year and the overall scare with the bubble and the pandemic and all that changed the system so drastically that you guys were able to win 1st overall immediately after winning 2nd overall. Both years, you guys jumped up incredibly far in the draft lottery standings to go ahead and take the top 2 picks in back-to-back years. But the fact that we don't know if the previous year's worth of draft lotteries are going to come in and actually change the dynamic, and they'll restart the counting in 2022, that's a big dub for you guys, because you guys can still have the opportunity to go out there and actually win a lottery again if things go the way that we discussed they might a few videos ago, where it doesn't matter if you won 1st overall in 2017 and 2019, you're good to go because there's a new system in place in 2022 and beyond. So who knows if that's actually going to go down. If it does, then yeah, good job New York, good job Ottawa. You guys were out there coming out like bandits on this one. As for Detroit, it's not that bad. I mean, they're not that screwed over. Sure, they got screwed over last year, but everybody kind of beat to death how they got screwed over last year. It's good that the system has changed. It's just this year, the year that it is changing, it's fine. Because I would rather have these changes implemented this year because this year's draft is so spread out at the top that the potential damage that this kind of system, newly implemented, would do to the reputation of the prospects and the drafting process in general, it's so much smaller than it would have been if it was implemented last year or next year or in 2 years. So They had a very small window to go ahead and do that, and I think it's really coincidental, but hey, the Red Wings got screwed, yes, but they're not as screwed as some people might believe them to be. So talk to me in the comments what you think about all this stuff here, just my thoughts on the new draft lottery process. Thought I would get that out there because, hey, it is what it is. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Irish Rolls 99, and bye.